Happy New Year, everybody! New year, new tier list for My Hero Ultra Rumble. It's been such a long time since the last one. We've got a few balance patches along the way, and we have yet to place Endeavor. So I couldn't think of a better way to kick off the 2024 My Hero Ultra Rumble content. If you've missed my last tier list, it looked like this, but if you didn't, no worries, we're throwing that in the trash and starting over. The focus of this tier list is going to be teams of threes, not solos, not duos, because trios still feel like the main game mode in Ultra Rumble, and my whole experience is on console. Until this game has crossplay, I feel like console and PC are two very different beasts. But even with that said, some of you will disagree with some of my placements, and that's okay. I always welcome the discussion down there in the comments. And we'll start this video right away with the S tiers, where I've made Todoroki the #1 character in the game right now, followed very closely by Bakugo. These two are easily the top 2 characters for me. With Todoroki, you have incredible range and damage with the Alpha and great mobility with the Gamma quirk, as long as it's not vertical mobility. And you have that at a very low cooldown, so catching a Todoroki can be really hard, especially since you cannot touch any of his eyes or you'll be frozen yourself. And even the beta is a good quirk, and then Bakugo may not have that freeze, but he can fly. He still has some of the best mobility in the game. Now, I usually think mobility is king, but what pushes Todoroki ahead for me is this. With a well-coordinated team, he freezes you and you die. There is one other character in this game that can do this, but they don't have the range or the mobility that Todoroki has, so Todoroki, #1. And for as much as Bakugo mains want to downplay the character, the nerfs didn't really hit him that hard. The rest of the S tier looks like this, and you might notice that it's the first time that I put Uraraka anywhere near the top. Now this is partially because of the patches. The biggest one was fixing her alpha, making her much more reliable, but also I was just wrong in the past. Oops. Her mobility is fantastic now that Alpha is fixed, and her damage is really good once she gets close, which she should have no trouble doing given how good her mobility is. On top of it, you can actually stay in your opponent's face and keep spinning as they're waking up, basically guaranteeing more damage unless they get rescued by a teammate or another top tier shows up. Next up, I actually had Tsuyu lower at some point, but I believe that as soon as she gets her level 4 Alpha, she's back to having the best mobility in the game. And her damage got nerfed at first, but then it also got buffed, so she's kinda good again. Still one of the hardest targets to hit in the game. She's extremely annoying in team fights, which is a deadly combination if she can revive down teammates, which she can. She doesn't carry a team anymore, but I still think she is an S tier character. And finally Toga. I think this is where Toga is gonna live forever. Bottom of S tier. Basically because no one else allows you to play with 2 of the same top tier on the same team except for Toga. Now that may look like all the S tiers, but there's one secret S tier that we haven't revealed yet, and that is today's sponsor, Surfshark. Now, I think we all know what a VPN is at this point, but there's a lot that I didn't know a VPN could do. For instance, are you planning any trips in the new year? Surfshark VPN can actually save you money on airline tickets. With the amount of data that online platforms collect about us, price discrimination is a very easy thing to pull off. But if you clear your cookies and activate the VPN before you access the website, poof, the data is gone, and now these websites have no idea who you are, so they can't price discriminate anymore. And Surfshark doesn't just hide your data from these websites, they also don't keep any of it, as they have a strict no logs policy. I love that they've reached the coverage of 100 countries. They're the only VPN to do so. I love that you only need 1 subscription to have Surfshark on unlimited devices. Seriously, I don't think I've ever logged out of my account on any device at all. Consoles included. And they've got an exclusive winter deal going on right now where you can get up to 6 months for free at surfshark.deals/Globku. It's absolute risk-free if you want to try it out for yourself because they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So get that winter deal at surfshark.deals/Globku and use code Globku to protect your online privacy today and unlock the internet that's been blocked away from you. And thank you Surfshark for sponsoring this video. And let's move on to the A tiers, and this section has changed quite a bit since last time. At the very top is still Cementoss, now more than ever. Because the only thing that changed for him is that now he has less of a cooldown on his alpha, so he can just build towers more often. Still one of the hardest characters to take down in the game, which is deadly when you have an instant revive like he does. All Might got a pretty significant nerf. He used to be S tier for me. I still think he's very strong, still has godlike mobility. They just nerfed his ranged game slightly, so knocked him down a tier. Denki, on the other hand, got the biggest buff anyone has ever gotten in this game. Seriously, he used to be a C tier in my opinion, and that's because of his Gamma. Denki was a deeply flawed character for me. You could use his Gamma to get in and stun a character, but that would mean having no means of escaping. And even if you saved that dash to get away, it was a very underwhelming quirk compared to many other mobility ones. And all of that was fixed by giving him 2 stocks of the Gamma. Also, if he stuns you, that kind of works like Todoroki's freeze. You can just melt away someone's health down with a well-coordinated team. The reason why he isn't up there with Todoroki is because, 1, his mobility doesn't go as far. Even though it is vertical, I feel like Todoroki has better mobility. And 2, the combo is much easier to pull off on Todoroki if you're solo. Because he can do it from range, he can do it from a safe distance, and Denki kinda has to be in the middle of it. That's what keeps him from being S tier in my opinion. Now, Deku and Kirishima are pretty much in the same spot that they were before, both solid and very strong for very different reasons. Deku is super well balanced, good mobility, good damage, good range, and Kirishima is a damage monster, and there are some counters that he struggles against, but just like Uraraka, once he gets in your face, it can feel impossible to shake him off. Iida also climbed to the A tier, and this one is mostly just me changing my mind. I mean, I knew this was gonna happen. In fact, this is what I said last time I placed him. I really struggled with Iida's placement, and to be honest, I'm still not 100% sure. On one hand, he deals a lot of damage, and he can pick up teammates in order to revive them, so he's got good team support too. Now, ever since that video, it seems like a lot of people are calling him S tier, and I think you're insane. Iida is very good, yes, but everything he does gets absolutely destroyed by dodge rolls. If a good player is looking straight at you, it is super hard to get any hits in as Iida. Now, you could say that that's true about every character. Dodges are a bit busted and maybe should be nerfed. Yeah, I agree, but that's a discussion for a different video. I still feel like Iida is extra weak to them. And then Aizawa climbed from B to A tier, and this wasn't me changing my mind at all. I think it was pretty much just buffs. 3 patches in a row, Aizawa got buffed. His alpha got fixed. It feels very consistent to me. Fighting while hopping has never felt so good as Aizawa does now, and his special action also feels a lot more consistent. I actually think there's a lot of untapped potential team combinations with Quirk Erasure. We're gonna talk about her in a second, but imagine your quirks being erased right next to a giant Mount Lady. I don't think you're having a good time with that one. And his damage got buffed so hard, especially on his Gamma quirk, that he's actually a threat now. I wonder if they're finally happy with where Aizawa is, or if they're just gonna keep buffing him. We'll see. With that said, let's move on to the B tiers, and I consider these folks at B to be fair and balanced. They're not weak at all, they're just the balanced characters of the game. And we start with Shigaraki, who has one of the highest damage potentials in the entire game. But there are a lot of counter picks against him, as he's mostly a grounded character. The Gamma buff is incredible, but not enough to move him up in a full tier. So he's gonna sit right there at the top of B. On the other hand, Momo did drop a full tier. I used to have her at A, and that's all because of the shield nerf. At this point, even though they've been buffing the other abilities, I still think she's mostly a 1 quirk character. She's all about the shield, and the shield is really strong. The rest of the quirks are alright. But the shield isn't broken anymore because they increased the cooldown, so she can no longer keep it up all the time. So you can aim for that moment of cooldown to take her down, and she is completely defenseless. See? Fair and balanced. And Mount Lady, I bumped her up to B tier. I had her on C for 2 reasons. 1, she got a buff since the last tier list. It was a really long time ago, but she now has 2 Gammas. Last time we did this, she only had 1, so her mobility is actually decent now. And 2, I actually learned how to play her and understand the character a little bit better now. You simply never use the Mount Lady growth until the circle is super small. Forget that exists, it only makes you a bigger target. Unless you're paired with Aizawa. If you can disable quirks, then you can grow and be a really scary combo. I honestly think she's great while she's small. Chasing down opponents with her alpha and then going in for the beta when you're close just deals so much damage. And if you survive until the end, she is an absolute powerhouse in a small circle. Almost like a win condition. Capress got a couple of quality of life buffs, but nothing crazy since the last tier list. So he's pretty much in the same place. He can deal good damage with his alpha, but not for a very long time. And he's got a good escape as long as no one sees where you went. Because if they do, then you're out of mobility. And finally, Dabi. I feel like Dabi is just gonna get weaker and weaker over time unless he actually gets buffed. The traps are strong, but more and more players are learning how to deal with those. Either circumventing or straight up just shooting the traps themselves. They offer good protection, and so does Dabi's circle, but since Dabi can't run, he's basically wasting time and delaying the inevitable very often. Sometimes delaying the inevitable is enough for your teammates to pick up the slack, but that's just it. He will usually need those teammates to pick up the slack. So I think he's fair and balanced, great team support, but does rely a lot on his team in my opinion. And at this point you must be wondering, where the hell is Endeavor? Welcome to the C tiers. Now, these characters are not necessarily bad in my opinion, but they could use some buffs for sure, and I still cannot believe they nerfed Endeavor, man. Now, I actually think Endeavor was already a C tier before the patch. He's an absolute damage monster, is actually great from long range. If he can keep his distance, I don't think you should feel bad if an Endeavor kills you. But I think his mobility is just okay, so he needed something else defensively. And look, the flight thing, it's good. The super jump, it's also good, but both of these deplete that special meter so fast that it feels like he only has good mobility for a very short time. If he had a mobility quirk, kinda like All Might does for instance with his beta, then absolutely this character would immediately raise a tier. But with the way he works right now, it's very easy to nuke Endeavor. The spears can work as a defensive quirk kind of if you're trying to keep someone away from you, but unfortunately they do not block projectiles, so getting focused down by anyone with decent range and half decent mobility is a death sentence for Endeavor, and guess what? All of these characters fit that description. Bottom line is, remove his gamma and give him something useful. Then he might be a decent character. Ibara is still down here as well. She got some really good buffs and I actually think she can contribute really well to a team now as long as the team has her back. You need to babysit Ibara. She needs to be protected all the time, and with zero mobility that really is up to the teammates that she has. Good buffs, but any decent ranged character should just target her and there's nothing she can do about it. And I still think Kendo is the worst character in the game. She's received a movement speed buff that in my opinion didn't do much. I mean, I bet Kendo mains were happy, but I don't think it changed their placement at all. And that is my tier list for Season 2. Let me know who you would move around if this was your tier list. And for more My Hero Ultra Rumble, check out what happened exactly in the last balance patch. Thanks for watching. Bye.